So I keep seeing content about how you should do your makeup or dress in your rising sign or your Venus sign. And I myself am a Scorpio Venus, so I thought that I would take a crack at doing my makeup in this style. Also, hi, my name is Nupur and I love indie makeup and all things color and sparkle, and welcome back to my channel. I would really appreciate it if you could give this video a like and consider subscribing. And in terms of comments, I would love to know what your Venus sign is, if you know what it is, and if you're into astrology, let me know if you feel like you relate to it or how your Venus sign manifests in you. I also really quickly want to throw out a little disclaimer that, all these things where they're like, do your makeup like this, dress like this, even color season analysis, all of it is fun content to consume, but it can end there, meaning you don't have to take any of it seriously at all if you don't want to. I just think that sometimes they're kind of nice tools to explore concepts or styles or ideas that you may not have thought of previously. Like, I don't think I've ever explicitly thought of doing my makeup in a Scorpio Venus style, but I wanted to try it out, so here I am today. So for today's video, I have a couple newer makeup releases to use, but I also pulled a few staple products from my collection, just so I could do this kind of in a tutorial style, but also, trying new makeup to kind of I don't know, have something for everyone, I guess. So that being said, I do have some makeup on. I have foundation, concealer that I set with powder just underneath my eyes so that it wouldn't crease. Then I also have my brows done and a little bit of lip balm on as lip prep, but that's it. Now, the reason that I did not set my entire face and I just set my under eyes is because the first product that I'm going to go in with is this contour stick. This is the Sephora Collection contour stick, and I really wanted to contour today because I feel like Scorpios are known for having very intense gazes with the eyes, but I feel like that intensity also translates onto the face, and I think a great way to play with intensity is shadows, so contouring. I actually talked about this contour stick in a recent video where I reviewed a bunch of makeup that I tried in March, and this has become a quick favorite of mine because I feel like it's just so beginner friendly. I'm actually quite inexperienced when it comes to contouring, and the formula of the stick just makes it very easy for me. The color is a little bit light, so I had to add another layer to get just a light shadow, but I also don't want to go too overboard with the contour. Now I want to set my face because this is quite a glowy foundation that I have on. I have the About Face foundation, which I really like, and I feel like it does take to powder pretty well, but the reason that I want to use powder is I want to mattify this quite a bit, since I just feel like for Scorpios, the glowy look is not really it. And to set my face, I'm going to be using the What's Up Beauty Wind Dancer pressed setting powder, which just launched pretty recently. So I did receive these in PR, and I requested the shades medium and tan for my complexion, but they accidentally sent me medium and deep. So I'm going to be keeping deep aside to give away, hopefully to a friend. But here's the shade medium, and I do think that this will work. It looks like, I think it should be an okay match for me. It might be a touch light, but I think that tan would have been too deep. Before I dip into this though, I just have to take a minute for this beautiful embossing on the pan. It's so pretty, but I will have to disrupt it. I almost forgot to mention that they also sent me their powder brush. This is the R204 brush, which is a natural goat hair brush, and I have tried a couple of their other face brushes that are also made with goat hair before, and I think they're pretty nice, but they are pretty pricey since they are natural hair, so just something to note. So I'm just gonna apply this, I'm gonna start down here first, see what it looks like. Then I'm also gonna tap it onto this side of my face just so I can compare it to the other side of my face that I'll leave unset for now. So that did take away quite a bit of shine. You can see it's just kind of like a soft glow over here versus over here where it looks very, very shiny. And I do want to note that my lights do pick up on all sorts of reflection and texture, more so than, a lot of other, I think, beauty YouTubers. I haven't really figured out my lighting yet, so it does really emphasize shine and glow, which is why I think you can see some glow coming through here, but I think in normal settings that wouldn't be the case. It also looks pretty good on my skin. It doesn't look heavy or dry, and I have combo skin. It's a little oilier in my T-zone, but it's drier on the sides and around my mouth and things like that, and so I am, a little wary of powders, but I did mention that I have my under eye set already, and I used a different powder for that. I used the Huda Beauty Easy Bake powder, and the reason I did that is because the Huda Beauty powder has talc, but the What's Up Beauty powder does not. And I just know with me, my skin type, and the concealer that I usually use, I need a powder with talc under my eyes to set it, otherwise it will crease. I'll probably continue to use this throughout April and then give you some final thoughts once I've had more time with it, since, you know, I want to test out the longevity and how it wears and all that sort of stuff. So if you're curious about it, just, you know, keep an eye on my videos maybe like a month from now. I'm going to move on to my eyes now, which is the most exciting part for me. But before I zoom you in, I want to touch on the concept of this video again, because here is where the Scorpio Venus really comes into play in the way that I am interpreting it. So in case you don't know anything about astrology, and quick disclaimer, I myself am not an expert. I'm a very casual astrology enthusiast, but what Venus is known for is it's the planet that rules over beauty and love. And with Scorpios, they're known for having very intense eyes, almost like hypnotic. So that's the kind of energy that I'm bringing to my eyes, but I want to do them in a very like sultry romantic way to incorporate that love aspect. And of course, I want to feel beautiful, because who doesn't want to feel beautiful? And I am going to be using some new makeup for this. I'm going to be using the Kryptine Cosmetics Secret Garden 1 and 2 palettes. I'm going to dip into the Secret Garden 2 palette and dip into this really dark shade over here. It's a very deep burgundy. Now that I look a little intense, here's the point where I let you know how I do my tutorials for the eye portion. I'm going to be showing you the application on this eye, but I'll already have the step that I'm showing you completed on this eye. That way you can see what I'm working toward. So I took that shade on this tiny smudge brush and I'm going to run it all around the eye to match this one. This might be a little hard to do without bringing the mirror super close to my face, but I'll make my best effort to not block my eye. I'm taking this super tight to the lash line, and here's where I want to talk about why I'm using this shade. So Scorpio stereotypical colors are black, burgundy, maroon, deep purples, just very intense and seductive colors, which is why I wanted to start with this super deep shade very close to the lash line, like an all-around liner. And that's also why I took it on a tiny smudge brush, because I do want to keep it pretty tight to the lash line, because I'm going to be kind of smoking it out a little bit with a different color. But I am laying on the pigment pretty thick, because as I blend it out, I might lose some of that pigment. And I can always add more on, but oh no, I got some on here. Let me try to get that off. I'm also taking it on my lower lash line all the way in, but again, very tight, because I want this to be super intense. And like I said, I want the eyes to be very magnetic. And I find that this technique on my round eyes really makes, I don't know, I feel like whenever I look at footage of me wearing this technique, which I have done plenty of times before, but never here on YouTube, I just feel like it's really seductive. Now I'm going to dip into the Secret Garden 1 palette and pick up this maroon shade on this like little pencil brush. So now I'm going to start using this to smudge out that liner. And you can see this is a lighter shade, and it's a maroon that it's a lot warmer than that burgundy shade that I put down. It's a bit more reddish, which is exactly what I want. Doing the same thing on my lower lash line. We do want it to be quite a smoky look, even though I'm not doing like a traditional eyeshadow shape, you know, with eyeshadow in the crease and then in the outer corner and all of that. I still want there to be a lot of shadow. And then here, I'm going to start pulling this out into kind of like a soft wing, almost like a phantom wing. I guess less of a phantom wing and more of a soft wing. It kind of went a little deeper than I intended it to, and I had to get the other side to match it. So now I'm going to dip back into this burgundy shade and re-intensify this liner where I lost some of that depth. And since this wing ended up being less of a phantom wing, I am going to take some of this deep shade outwards towards that wing as well, just so that it's not like a harsh disconnect between the really soft wing and the intense liner. Now I want to add a lighter lavender sparkle all over the lid to kind of juxtapose against this really intense wing that I have going on, but there are no lighter iridescent type purple shades in the Kryptine palette, so I'm actually going to dip into my single shadow collection, and I'm going to use the shade Ethos from Shine by SD, which is in collaboration with Glam Smitty. I'm picking this up with a smaller fluffy brush because I want to be able to control how much and exactly where I place the sparkle. I'm putting the bulk of the sparkle on the lid where the liner is not there, if that makes sense. And then as I get up into the crease, I'm going to feather this out a little bit. This is quite a dry shadow, so I might get some fallout, but that's okay. I know lavender isn't a traditionally Scorpio color, but since we are doing Scorpio Venus, and Venus is also associated with Aphrodite, which is such soft feminine energy, I just wanted there to be a bit of softness, and I do think that, you know, it goes so well against this really sharp, intense liner. Or not sharp, soft liner, but still intense. I actually decided to take the liner all the way into my inner corner. I don't do this very often because I feel like it just gets really messy there, but I think I do want to do it for this look. I do think the lavender is a little bit of my Libra speaking. So my chart, my sun is in Libra, my moon is in Gemini, and my rising is Virgo. And so I just feel like the Libra in me wants to put a little element of softness to the eyes, especially because I'm thinking ahead to the lips, and those are going to be pretty bold. Now I'm going to finish off the eyes with this shade over here to represent some of that passion that comes for Venus, and also just Scorpios are known to be very passionate. I'm going to do my usual inner swoop placement, of course. Really going to build this up little bit by little bit because the shadow is a little bit on the more textured side, so I don't want to go in with too much all at once. I did my mascara off camera, and then I realized there's one final element I want to add to the eyes, and that's lining the waterline with the black kajal, because I think that's going to like kick up the intensity, and black is another Scorpio color. I know you're not supposed to do it this way, but this is the only way that I can do it, and I don't do it that often, so I think it's fine. For blush, I'm going to keep it pretty neutral, especially because, like I said, the lips are going to be a bit on the bold side. So I'm going to use Phytosurgeon's Exothermic, which is basically just like a neutral brown with a slightly purpley undertone. So I think it'll really go with the colors on my face. This is actually my second pot of this blush because I had my first one for, at this point, probably 2 years. I actually just tossed it out. And so it just needed replacing because it's a cream product, and at 2 years, definitely not good to use on your face. Keeping it pretty soft on the cheeks, trying not to go too ham with the blush because I really want the focus to be on the eyes and the lips. So now for the lips, which are going to be a bit more on the fun side, but still keeping in line with the theme, I'm going to use this Mauve Frost lipstick. This is the shade Moonchild, which is also a collab with Glam Smitty, and I'm literally just now realizing that I'm using 2 of Smitha's collab products on my face today. This is a bit of a deeper shade. I've swatched it right here, so I'm going to line my lips first, and I'm going to use my NYX lip liner in the shade Club Hopper. I feel like nobody talks about this lip liner, but it kind of gives me the same feeling as MAC's Night Moth, which I don't have, but you know, I've swatched it in store, and I can't say if this is actually that close to it, but it reminds me of it. So now I'm going to go in with this lipstick, and hopefully I did mention previously that this is a Frost lipstick. It's not just any old lipstick. It's actually got a bit of a sheen to it, but it's this beautiful burgundy shade, so I just think it's going to tie in with the eye really well. Now here's where a bit more astrology stuff comes into play. So Venus, when it comes to your chart, is associated with love and passion and beauty, amongst other things. But each planet also rules over a specific sign, and Scorpio is ruled by the planet Pluto, which is an ice planet. So that's why I specifically wanted to use a Frost lipstick, because I was just thinking about Scorpio's icy vibes, especially because Scorpio is a water sign. I feel like people always mistype Scorpio as a fire sign, but they're actually a water sign. They have so much, you know, sensitivity and emotion buried deep underneath, and I just feel like Frost, ice, is a form of water. Hopefully you get my gist. And this shade to me is just so seductive as well. That's really the main theme of this look. You can apply these frosts like this and just one layer for a sheer wash of color. And of course, this is a darker shade, so it is still impactful, but I do think I want to build it up just a little bit more. This shade has that burgundy wine base, but there are also little tiny sparkles in there. I see a little bit of blue, but also some pink, I think. And you can't really make them out with your eye, especially from a distance. You know, I'm looking very up close in my mirror, but together they create this beautiful, almost purpley reflect. Plum, that's what this lipstick is like. It's a plummy shade. It's not quite burgundy. It's not very maroon. It's a bit more on the plummy side. I mentioned in a previous video that I do want to do a bigger video where I compare a bunch of frost and glittery lip formulas. So I'll keep like my full thoughts for these lipsticks for that video, but really quickly, these Mauve Frosts are a very thin, slippy formula. They almost feel like a balm on the lips, and I feel like you can't actually layer them on too much because they just kind of like, I don't want to say wipe off in between each layer, but it's just kind of like harder to build up to a super opaque finish. But I feel like with Frost, because they reflect a lot of light, you don't need these to be super opaque. And I also think that the thinner the lipstick is, the less likely that it's going to be to settle into your lip lines. I'm also biased because I'm friends with Smitha, but I think that she made such a beautiful shade, especially for the brown girls. I mean, this color it's everything. The final touch for this look, which I do all the time, but I kind of want to do it a bit more today, is to use my brow pen to add my beauty mark / freckle over here back in, because it often gets covered by my foundation. And I usually just do like the tiniest little prick of this pen and then tap it off so that it's not too intense. But I think today I want to go a little bit more, like I want to make it a little darker just because I think it really goes with this look. So I'm just going to carefully do that and then use my finger to tap it out. And that's like the normal amount that I do, but I think I'm gonna add a little more. I didn't go too hard, but this is more than I usually do, and to me it's very noticeable because I don't usually have this much of a freckle right there, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. Here's the final look. I really like how it turned out because, like I said, I do this technique of the smoky smudged out liner with a lighter shimmer on the lid quite a bit, but I don't know if I've ever like smoked out the wing like this, and I really love how that turned out. I feel like this does capture the essence of a Scorpio Venus. Also, my dog is snoring now in case you hear that. The eyes are very hypnotic, and I feel like this intense smudged out liner can look a little harsh or overpowering on some people, but I think on me, with my high contrast complexion, like between my hair and my skin and my eyes being very round and large, I don't think that this looks too strong. Maybe part of that is really playing into this whole, you know, do your makeup in your Venus sign, because it does, I feel, look pretty at home on my features. I don't feel like it looks too much. Maybe to some people it would be too much, but to me, I just feel really alluring in this. Here's a fun fact in case you stuck around till the end. So I mentioned that I am a Libra sun, which is true. I was born on October 23rd, and usually October 23rd is, the sun is already in Scorpio on October 23rd, but the year that I was born very early in the morning, and the sun decided to move into Scorpio just a little bit later that year, and I was actually born just like 3 or 4 hours off of that cutoff. And so I am extremely cuspy. And I know a lot of people are like, cusps don't exist, but I do feel like some of that Scorpio energy is bleeding into me, especially because my Venus being in Scorpio, that's not my only Scorpio placement in my chart. Though at my core, I am 100% a Libra for sure. I was actually thinking about this in terms of beauty and makeup and my YouTube channel, and I feel like my chart really manifests in my videos. So I have a Virgo rising, and I feel like that part especially comes out on camera because I've gotten actually so many comments of people being like, oh, your videos are so informative and detailed, and it feels like I'm reading, like, you know, like it feels like you have a doctorate in makeup when I'm talking about eyeshadow palettes, which is like the best compliment you could give me. But I feel like that's how I always want to present myself to people, and that's what your rising sign is. It's your kind of outward facing persona to the world. It's how people perceive you, and low key for me, how I want to be perceived. But at my core, I am a goofy, beauty loving Libra, and I feel like that's where my passion for art and beauty and even things like this where I want to kind of marry a concept to a look, I feel like that's where my Libra comes through. And then my Gemini moon is just the yapping part of me, the part that goes off on tangents and just goes a little crazy. Anyway, thank you for sticking it out till the end. I really appreciate it. And if you like astrology like me, I would love to know what your chart is down in the comments. Let's chat about astrology. And let me know if this was a style of video you enjoyed. I don't know if it's something that people really want from me and my channel, but I wanted to give it a shot because I was interested in doing it, so I figured why not? I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!